and have this conversation, man. So first and foremost, who, if you had to guess, who is going to be the starter week 1 for the Niners?
Man, dude, that's the problem right there. It's like, okay, everybody's saying if Purdy is medically clear, that seems obvious, but what if Trey just ends up being the best throughout the offseason? He's been putting extra work, and it's kind of like, that's a question mark. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm probably going to guess that it's Brock Purdy, if I'm being real.
I mean, I would guess so, man, but at what point is the decision you make at quarterback, if it is Brock Purdy, is that admitting that you made a mistake on Trey Lance?
Oh, dude, without a doubt, the thing with the situation with Trey Lance is he was just put out of a position to where, Shanahan just didn't use him, right? Maybe with the proper coaching, proper training throughout the offseason, he would at least be able to, because, when he had terrible footwork, he had to work on his accuracy. So that was something that Trey needed to improve on. But, Brock Purdy, you can say what you want. He just looked the part. He fit the system. You can agree on that part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good.
We got lucky out of that pick, if I'm being real. But I don't know how that's going to play out because, like you said, they might have some film on this kid. And the Cowboys actually kind of showed some of that tendency, and that kind of went into the Eagles.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay, and so say this then. So the way that Brock looked last year, because in my mind, if Brock is the starter week 1 and they're both healthy, that's admitting that you made a mistake on Trey Lance. You shouldn't have given up the picks. You shouldn't have moved up to get him. It was a waste. Or if you start Trey Lance, you have a quarterback who looked good last year who's got trade value now. And if you can get rid of Brock Purdy for really, if you can get a sixth round pick or above, I think you're looking pretty good because he was a mystery irrelevant. And you could definitely get more than that for him. He's a quarterback who performed well last year, got all the way to the NFC Championship. So that's one of those things where I feel like it's a mistake in general to go into the season and have both of them at your disposal. I think that's already a mistake. Commit to one guy, give him the keys, and let's go. You know what I mean? If you have both of them, that's just going to stir up controversy all year long.
It is already controversy as it is because Brock Purdy came off the injury. He looked pretty good in those 8 games, but everybody's forgetting about Trey Lance. And then now everybody's kind of writing him off. This is kind of like, I don't know, this kind of reminds me more of last year when people were writing off Geno Smith. I don't know why, but weren't we one of those guys that wrote him off a little bit?
Well, let's also not pretend like Geno Smith isn't still Geno Smith. 1 year in him performing well and pretty, he wasn't, Geno didn't look like he was doing anything that just that system isn't capable of. You know what I mean? Even look, Russell Wilson leaves that system and then looks terrible, and he was great there, obviously. So is it just a good system, a friendly system for a quarterback? Probably. I think that's reasonable to say.
But I think for Trey, man, you're right. If we don't play Trey, it kind of seems like it's a waste in some ways. But if we play him, what's the point of trading Brock Purdy if you could have a capable backup to step in when the injuries happen?
You already have Darnold, who they're comfortable with. You don't bring them in if you're not comfortable with them.
But you want to make sure you have the entire policy. Remember how the injuries happened last year? We went through 3 quarterback injuries. I think our season would have been over if we didn't have another quarterback like that. Sam Darnold, he's kind of been like whatever. 2 teams giving up on him. Is it possible that he can resurrect his career with Kyle Shanahan?
Look, he's a backup, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is, if you go into the season with both of them, the second one has a bad game, and it could just be a bad day. People have bad days.
Yep.
The whole fan base is going to be calling for the other guy, and I think you're in a
yes, they are. It's the business side because if he plays terrible, they're going to call it out, or they're going to want the other guy to come off the bench.
But then
so it's
to your point also, where you talk about the injuries last year, you can't just, based on last year, and even speaking from the Rams' perspective here, is you can't just, because you had a lot of injuries last year, you can't say going into this year that that's just going to happen again, because you don't know that answer. You know what I mean? Just because you have injuries 1 year does not mean that just translates into these guys are just going to get hurt the next year. So to hold 2 quarterbacks because a guy might get hurt, I think you're also wasting I think you're wasting value in your roster because you could get something else for that guy, whether that's trading Trey Lance or Brock Purdy.
So, all right, let me ask you this question. So, since you feel that way,
Yeah.
What would you trade for that quarterback from what other team? Like, let's say you're John Lynch. What quarterback would you trade for, and what would you want in return, or what?
You don't trade a quarterback for him. I mean, you trade something else for him. You get the guy that you feel comfortable with. Maybe an offensive lineman, maybe a backup wide receiver, maybe you get an edge rusher or something like that. Like, you don't just go quarterback for quarterback because that would be pointless. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, for just like the value from another team that needs a quarterback.
If I am the 49ers and I'm looking at moving Brock Purdy, I want a second-round pick and a backup player, whether that's a corner or a wide receiver, like a 3 or 4 wide receiver or corner, and a second-round pick. That's what I'd want.
I would think if it came down to it, I would want to get another edge rusher because it makes the job easier.
And in fairness, it's like it depends on who that team is and what they have an abundance of and what they're willing to give. Also, what does their draft status look like? Rams finally have a first-round pick, so that kind of changes things if we're talking about it. Also, for the 49ers, I don't have that deep understanding of their roster and where they could use other guys to benefit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, remember the logic back then? Who needs first-round picks? They're for suckers. Maybe it's still the logic. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope so, man. First-round picks, I mean, they're coin tosses, dude. It's fine. Yeah. Like, if we can get a guy that we feel comfortable fitting into our system, that who we feel like is going to fit in really well, like Matthew Stafford, like Jalen Ramsey, like all these guys that we've done it before, why not do it again? You know what I mean? Instead of a coin toss.
I mean, sometimes you hit pretty well on those late round picks, and that's where the Niners have been very successful at. So it's like, George Kittle, nobody expected this guy to be a stud, but he was good at Iowa. He was more of a blocking specialist.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. All, 3 of the NFC West teams outside of the Arizona Cardinals are really good at getting those, mid rounds. They're good at nailing those picks. The Seahawks do it, the Rams do it, the Niners do it. So that's what.
Yeah, Cardinals just have a hard time finding that type of player. But it's all love to you guys, bro. I don't got nothing against you. I actually just hate the Cowboys. I'm a Cowboy hater.